people know they can come here in whichever way, disappear into our society, and they won't be found. One thing I was going to say to both of you, I said it yesterday. 2 years ago, a year ago, Albanian men, this is true, wasn't it? It was the highest incidence of male foreign prisoners. They did a deal with Albania. Why isn't this government, Henry, here? Why aren't they getting off their backsides and making deals with other governments to send people back, rather than hanging their entire future, which doesn't look great, on a policy that even if one person takes off, everybody thinks it's a shambles? That's what I don't get.
So, two reasons. One, a lot of those countries are simply not amenable to such a deal. If you're thinking
Is that because with Brexit?
No, because if you think about a country like Syria or other countries in the Middle East, those governments are not really open to returns deals, and we're not negotiating with them. The other one is document retention. In the case of the Albanians, normally we can prove they're Albanians. Most countries are happy to take their nationals back eventually. But what do the people smugglers tell people to do? Chuck your passport overboard. The moment you've done that, it's very hard for the government to prove who you are, and therefore to persuade another country to take you back.
It's a joke, isn't it?
That strategy with Albania has been something that we can say maybe we've seen some progress here. Alicia, I mean, I asked you what the Conservative Party we could say have done well, because they're going to be clinging on to those kind of little morsels in the next 11 months or so to try and persuade the public, look, OK, we maybe haven't completely stopped the boats, but we've done something. Almost impossible, if this Rwanda bill keeps getting snarled up in the same way, for them to be able to blow their trumpet about much.
Well, firstly, when we saw that drop in small boat crossings in December, for example, until the new year, Rishi Sunak and lots of senior cabinet ministers said it was because of the Rwanda scheme that had happened. But actually, there's no evidence to prove that whatsoever. We've not had a single migrant go to Rwanda, so it is highly unlikely that that was the scheme that stopped people from abroad actually coming here on small boats. They will I think they will just try and credit the Rwanda scheme, even though it's not actually off the ground. They will say that that is what has stopped them.
What is really frustrating, Henry, is we spoke to Conservative MPs yesterday who are effectively, it seems to us, pretending to think this is the right idea because the party is so wedded to the plan.
They didn't look like they believed it. Buckland didn't look like he believed it.
And they've got no other option now, do they? They've got to kind of, those of them voting for this have to sort of say, yeah, we really believe this is going to work.
They do, which is quite strange. They got boxed in by two things. One, the government thought the original Rwanda scheme would work. They were surprised by the court defeat, and now they've invested so much political capital in it. But the other problem that you have is that they've got nothing else, right? And they can't talk about legal migration. They want to run on migration in the election. Legal migration is at a record high, right? 750,000 people net last year. So you can't talk about that. That means you have to talk about illegal immigration, which means you have to talk about Rwanda, because it's all you've got.
It's very interesting that, again, in the months past, Benedict Spence and people like that have said to me that they never had any intention of thinking that it was going to work. It was literally a political game, in effect. They felt that, there would be barriers, there would be difficulties, but they could go to the election. So, you know what, we've done everything, but the Lords are against us, and the lefty lawyers are against us, and this is against us, and the French are against us. I sum it up with Neil, actually, just messaged us. The Conservatives successfully kicked the immigration issue down the road for so long that they'll certainly be voted out of office before they manage to send even a single migrant to Russia or Rwanda. And so we can look forward to years of Labour inaction in the same vein to follow. When will somebody come up with an answer? I think that's actually very true. I don't think anybody... And I find it extraordinary that these politicians don't have an answer.
Well, I mean, all of the actual answers would be really controversial, right? Whether that's reviewing the ECHR and international law, bringing in ID cards so that you could police the black economy properly, making the welfare system contributory. All of these things would be really big, crunchy, complex
Do you think the United Kingdom, because of the cost of living and people's frustration, will ever get to a point where they accept those controversial things as an answer to a problem that just doesn't go away?
I think we're getting to the point where that happens eventually, yeah, absolutely. We've had cheap credit, which has smoothed out an awful lot of the problems. Housing crisis, lack of real wage growth, been hidden effectively by the fact that credit was cheap. That's run out, and I think that's going to tell over the next 10 years.
Couldn't agree more.
Henry, Alicia, thank you both so much.
Thanks, gang.
Much more on this to come across the day as we sort of gear
joy,
up
Rwanda.
for the vote to see how many MPs actually decide.
You're going to watch later?
Probably, yes.
Good.
To see how many MPs actually decide we are going to rebel.